The Subaru Outback is no stranger to this YouTube channel, as over the last 3 years we have checked out almost every single trim level available to you, whether it's the Premium, the Onyx Edition, or even the Wilderness. But today I'm standing next to the 2023 Subaru Outback Limited XT, and for the 2023 model year it's the mid-cycle refresh, where Subaru makes some slight tweaks to the exterior and maybe even the interior as well to make the vehicle a bit more on par with its closest rivals. And in this video we're going to take a deep dive into the 2023 model year, check out what is new, and also see why, if you are looking at buying a vehicle at around $40,000 to $45,000 and you want something that is off-road worthy, maybe a vehicle is family friendly as well, then maybe taking a look at the Subaru Outback might be a great decision. Now before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Subaru of Wakefield in Wakefield, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Subaru inventory. And speaking of inventory, Subaru of Wakefield is home to the largest selection of Subarus in New England. So if you are looking at buying a brand new vehicle right now, but it's been difficult due to the car shortages, well, Subaru of Wakefield is your home because they're getting new 2023 models every single day throughout the week. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. Subaru's best-selling model has always been a standout in the mid-size crossover market, as its station wagon-like road presence has been a staple for the Outback nameplate since its inception. Not only has Subaru stayed true to its successful formula, but their commitment to understanding and listening to the people who buy their vehicles the most has kept this crossover high on the list as being one of the most popular SUVs in the US. The mid-cycle refresh goes beyond modernizing the exterior, as the updates for 2023 are all meant for a purpose to improve the overall experience drivers have on a daily basis. Starting off with pricing, the Limited XT comes in at just under $40,000, sitting below the top trim Touring within the lineup. Ever since this generation for the Outback was unveiled, Subaru has continued to develop this crossover, not only outwardly, but also the features and variety you have to choose from. Where the Wilderness and Onyx Edition are the rugged and sporty models designed for the individual who wants to embark on outdoor adventures, but for those who desire a vehicle that's practical yet enjoyable to drive, the Limited is the happy medium of offering the creature comforts while still remaining affordable. Off-road worthiness is another aspect that keeps buyers coming back for more, as the Outback's 8.7 inches of ground clearance will allow drivers to tackle winter road conditions and the paths less traveled. One of the highlights for 2023 is the updated exterior that's mostly centered around the front fascia, where the Outback keeps its traditional body lines and overall design. But the cosmetic enhancements brings a new personality to a crossover that up until very recently was predictable and unassuming. Taking on a slightly new look, the plastic cladding has been scaled back a bit, no longer dominating the front bumper, and instead connects to the headlight housings and perfectly outlines the rearranged fog lights, which are now mounted close to center, likely to provide better visibility on dimly lit roads. 2023 also ushers in a sportier and eye-catching grille that adds a bit more character than last year. And with the sharpened headlight housings, the Outback has a distinguishable road presence that will certainly garner some attention. Moving over to the side profile, the Limited will be sitting on 18-inch aluminum alloy wheels that can also be found on the Touring as well. When it pertains to ride quality, the Outback suspension is more than forgiving, and even with the larger tire size, you'll have the reassurance of not getting thrown around as you commute to work on roads with imperfections and potholes. While the plastic cladding up front was trimmed down, it was enhanced for the wheel arches to better protect the paint when going off-road. For the Limited, crystal black silica finish folding side mirrors with integrated turn signals will add a much needed color contrast, and you'll have blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, unless you know the Outback really well, there's no significant difference between the 2023 model and last year, except for the reflectors that now run horizontal rather than vertical. But that detail is so insignificant that it shouldn't be noteworthy. LED taillights will give this crossover a modern look. And as we've seen throughout the years, the exhaust outlets are tucked beneath the bumper to keep the rear fascia design clean and minimalistic. Stepping inside, the Limited XT will come equipped with power adjustable and heated leather trimmed seats for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side being 2-position memory for added convenience. Across the different trim levels for the Outback, you can opt for Nappa leather with the Touring, and Subaru StarTex water-resistant fabric seats for the Onyx Edition and Wilderness, which both provide a lot of comfort and plushness. And this upholstery is no different, as interior quality has been a point of emphasis within the last few years. In front of you, between the analog gauges, you will have a digital information display, which hasn't changed for 2023. However, Subaru did make a slight tweak to the steering wheel, as the buttons that control this display can now be found on the left side of the wheel, rather than being toggles placed parallel to the heated steering wheel button. Then moving over to the infotainment system, you'll have an 11.6-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with onboard navigation. Since this user interface's debut, Subaru has made subtle updates to this screen that may or may not go unnoticed if you're familiar with the Outback, as you now have an icon that directs you to the list of devices that are connected to this head unit. But a minor improvement that immediately grabbed my attention was the climate controls, which not only were cleaned up for 2023, but the tabs now contrast with the screen's background to make it easier to read. The menu layout remains the same, however, with resolution and quality outshining some of its domestic rivals. You'll have a rear backup camera with trajectory, reverse automatic braking, and front and rear parking sensors to keep yourself from getting into trouble when you're backing in and out of spots. Below, our Outback does have a wireless phone charging pad, which is optional for 8 out of the 9 trim levels for 2023. And beginning last year, Subaru now gives you a USB-C input for drivers with newer smartphones. For the center storage compartment, there'll be enough room for smaller items. And rounding out the front seating area, above will be a power moonroof to let in some natural light to the interior. Now moving on to the second row, we're going to start off on the passenger side. And this seat has been adjusted all the way back and is somewhat on a recline for demonstrational purposes, and I actually have plenty of room here. I wouldn't be complaining on a longer drive if someone around the height of 6 feet tall or above was sitting in front of me. Now, I'm not the tallest person out there. I'm around 5'5", but it is good to know that if you do have smaller kids in the back and you are going on that weekend getaway, everyone should be comfortable in this vehicle. Now, when it comes to headroom, you do have a lower roofline thanks to the Outback station wagon-like look to it. And I do think that for taller passengers around the height of 6 feet tall, they might be hitting their head on the headliner. But if you're on the height of 5'8" or 5'9", that should not be a problem at all. Then, of course, with the Outback being a bit wider, you're going to have a good amount of shoulder room as well. But let's see if you can fit a third person back here. Now, moving on to the center seat, there is somewhat of an aggressive hump, and that will take away from the legroom a bit. And I have said in the past that it might not be the most conducive to try fitting in that third person, and I'm going to stick with that for the 2023 model year. It's becoming an annual tradition at this point, because I do believe that the Forester is the more family-friendly alternative in the lineup. I just believe that, where it has enough shoulder and legroom where you can squeeze in a third kid or maybe even a third adult. Whereas the Outback, again, with it being very closely related with the Legacy, you are going to notice that it's going to have more car-like tendencies, especially with that center hump, whereas the Forester won't give you that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Maybe on a shorter drive, you can squeeze in that third person, but if you are somebody that does have a family and you do go on the road a bit throughout the year, you might want to go with that Forester. And then on the driver's side, I adjusted the seat to someone of my height, around 5'5", and I have a lot of legroom here, so I can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the driving experience. But also, these seats feel very plush, so on a 3 or 4 hour long drive, I'm going to be nice and relaxed. Then also back here, you do have two rear air vents to go along with the USB-C and USB outlet for dual functionality if you do have a newer iPhone. Also, you have two level heated outboard seats. And rounding out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with two cup holders. Now coming around to the back, you're going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 32.6 cubic feet of room. Now, I'm not trying to make this an either-or situation, but if you are looking at buying an Outback, you might be cross-shopping it with the Forester. And for the Forester, you're going to have right around 29 cubic feet of room. So there's going to be a bit more space to work with when it comes to the Outback. Then with the second row seats sold, you're looking at right around 75.6 cubic feet. So right then and there, you have a vehicle that's family friendly, that's practical, off-road worthy, and can take on deep snow and mud throughout the year. I was able to fit all my camera gear today, no problem. So that's 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod, and probably could have gone to the grocery store after as well. And I do think that if you are going on a road trip or weekend getaway with the family, you can probably fit maybe 5 to 6 bags of luggage back here, even with the second row seats up. Then on either side of the rear cargo area, you'll have quick release latches that will conveniently lower the second row seats, so that way you can spend more time loading this vehicle up with all your gear rather than manually lowering those second row seats. Then on the right side of the rear cargo area, there will be some netting for some smaller items such as water bottles or possibly even a first aid kit. And finally, one feature that I really like is the rear cargo cover, which will keep all your valuable items out of sight. So if you are like me and you have camera gear or anything else of value that can't be replaced and you leave this vehicle unattended for a while, you can have that peace of mind knowing that nobody will peek in and steal what you have. And then once you're done, just press the button and the liftgate will close automatically. Under the hood, the Limited XT is powered by a 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that produces 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with a CVT. While you can't opt for the naturally aspirated powertrain, there was one key takeaway from the test drive, where XT models offer incentives to spend a little extra, whether you're someone who wants a quicker acceleration time or a more athletic driving experience. So one thing that I was guilty of the last time I filmed the Outback is I really didn't get any highway footage. So let's get on the highway here. Check out what the handling is like. Well, there is some body roll there, which isn't too much of a surprise due to the fact that we have 8.7 inches of ground clearance. A strong amount of power right there. Get the highway speeds pretty quickly. Also, what I love too is that this CVT, even though it is a CVT, it does mimic the gear shifts quite nicely, so it does feel like a traditional automatic. Whereas some competitors, such as Nissan, those CVTs tend to drone quite a bit. They're not the most enjoyable, they're not the smoothest out there. Whereas the Outback and other vehicles in the Subaru lineup does give you a nice smooth transition, or at least mimicking through those gears, just to give you more of that traditional driving experience. I think that's one of the reasons why I do prefer the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine over the naturally aspirated, because even though with the 182 horsepower, I think it's more than enough for most buyers, with 260 horsepower, now you have a vehicle that can get up to highway speeds pretty quickly, but also a vehicle that does feel rather peppy and sporty. And of course, even though I had the opportunity to take this vehicle on the highway, we have traffic, so it just isn't meant to be with the Outback with these reviews. But one thing I do like though is that whether it's at highway speeds or when you're cruising around town in the city or suburbs, there's really a lack of road noise. So the interior does feel very well refined, and also it's very quiet, which is one thing that I think a lot of buyers are looking for at around $40,000. Regardless of whether you consider the Subaru Outback to be a crossover or a lifted station wagon, Subaru has really cornered the market with this vehicle because it's very unique and not like its closest rivals at all. Because from the outside, you have a station wagon-like design, but from its driving dynamics, it performs very much like a crossover. You've probably heard me talk quite a bit over the last 3 years that The Outback can be cross-shopped with the Forester pretty extensively, where you can go back and forth for hours wondering which one is better suited for you and your family. But because the Outback offers a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, it can now go up against vehicles such as the Chevrolet Blazer, Ford Edge, Honda Passport, and other mid-size crossovers. And one of the reasons why I would definitely recommend taking a look at the Outback is that it's offering everything you could possibly want in a vehicle at around $40,000, where you have the ground clearance, you have the symmetrical all-wheel drive system, whereas a lot of competitors don't offer that as a standard feature. But also the fact that Subaru has really emphasized this interior quality that is something we don't normally see from American manufacturers, but also even some Japanese manufacturers as well. We have soft touch materials on the dashboard, you have a more refined interior that is really more reflective of a vehicle at around $45,000 to $50,000. And I think that's why a lot of Americans have gravitated towards Subaru, not only because it is off-road worthy, can take on deep snow, but it's a vehicle that you really don't get tired of driving at all. Especially with these seats, they provide a lot of support and a lot of bolstering. It's the perfect daily driver that blends everything you want in a crossover, while at the same time still feeling as though you're driving a car. And it's mostly because this vehicle is closely related to the Legacy. And due to that close relation to Subaru's midsize sedan, the Outback does have car-like tendencies, especially when it pertains to the seating position, as it feels as though you're driving a lifted Legacy, rather than having the commanding field of vision that the Forester is best known for. However, the body roll is more than noticeable, yet the steering is nice and direct, not providing too much feedback in the corners. But that's not what the Outback was specifically designed for. As a daily driver, this crossover offers the best of both worlds, of being off-road worthy, capable, and comfortable, while also being practical. And it's those well-rounded attributes that makes it a solid alternative to the Forester if you desire to go a bit more upmarket. So to wrap up my time with the 2023 Subaru Outback, what are my final thoughts and takeaways for this crossover slash lifted station wagon? It's a perennial all-star. You know exactly what you're getting year in and year out, as this vehicle throws you no curveballs. However, for 2023, you do have options available to you between the trim levels, where you can go with the Wilderness for the more off-road worthy vehicle, or you can go with an Onyx Edition, which is probably better suited for someone with pets. But the Limited XT, you have 8.7 inches of ground clearance, which is standard across all the trim levels except for the Wilderness. You also have Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive, which does come standard, whereas some rivals offer all-wheel drive as an option, so you're paying extra. And I think that's why a lot of Americans who do live in colder regions of the US tend to choose Subaru over other competitors in this segment. And then finally, when it comes to the driving experience and driving dynamics, I love what the Outback is offering, especially with the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. But better yet, even though this vehicle is off-road capable, the suspension is forgiving, and it's also a vehicle that is daily drivable. So you have the best of both worlds, where it is a crossover, it is off-road worthy, but also you have a vehicle that is comfortable, relaxing, and I think a no-brainer if you are looking at buying a crossover at around $40,000. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog, so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.